for us to see, sir.
unable to be
It's different
here.
for us to go to
So
middle
we
instead
have
of east, you know.
Building and Grounds Committee meeting minutes.
If everyone can please stand for a moment of silence and then the pledge.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we still have a couple of more minutes before 4 o'clock. And Teresa is not here, so I will be taking the position of vice chairman and conducting this meeting with all my foibles, but we'll do it anyway. I'm going to wait another 2 or 3 minutes.
I can school. Someone's phone is supposed to be on. It's not mine.
Are we at 4 o'clock yet?
Yes.
Yes.
So I will call this meeting to order now. We have already said pledge, thank you for leading that, and the moment of silence. And our action items is to approve the minutes of the July 9th meeting. We have two committees that were present, the Building and Grounds and Policy Committee. Is there a motion to approve both minutes?
Motion
Mr.
to
Chair,
approve.
move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. The minutes have been approved. The next item, incidentally, if you did not hear, Teresa Boston is not able to be here, so I am conducting the meeting for this short, brief period of time. Thank you for your patience. The Policy Committee. I understand that Rebecca Hamby will not be here today. And Elizabeth, are you handling the Policy Committee?
I am, yes.
Okay, would you like to begin your meeting?
We have a few policies up for review and possible discussion. We'll start with policy 1.200, method of election of officers. I know there were some corrections that we needed to go ahead and discuss making on this policy. One of them was changing the very line 1 with waiting until the September meeting to go ahead and make that August.
Well, we needed to keep the legislative representative in there
Right.
in order to change that to match the proper title now. And then it came back for some discussion regarding pro tem,
Right.
need for pro tem, and when.
That was going to need to be changed to chairman pro tem, and that was supposed to be in the August meeting, not September. But the other ones were supposed to be for the September meeting.
Correct.
And so, okay, so my question is, I go back to the Robert's Rules of Order when it says we already have all of that in place.
But we don't have it in place because we're going into a new session in September, and we won't have a chairman or a vice chair.
No, because what it says is that this, if something comes up, the secretary calls order and then appoints that person, and then we do. But if we don't have anything come up, then we don't need the pro temp. I don't understand why we need this person.
My thought is the fact that if we were the board and if we're able to go ahead and get in front of that, knowing that we have that coming up, then we should go ahead and do that. Even though the director of schools is considered the secretary, that is a whole job in and of itself as being the director, and they shouldn't have to be tasked with conducting, setting up the meeting, when we should be able to go ahead and get in front of that in the first place.
So, Mr. Stepp, how do other counties handle this with their chairman or excuse me, with their school director? Is this how they do it with
I
them?
haven't seen this happen before. So-
Ever?
I haven't, but I was at a building level for so long, so this is a new for me also. But Robert's Rules of Order, sets up a venue, and I think we talked about that last time.
Yeah.
Where you
Yeah.
can do that. You really don't have to have it in policy, but
Yeah, it says that the secretary calls the meeting to order and the assembly immediately elects a chairman pro tem to preside during that session. And then such office is terminated by the entrance of the president or a vice president. So, I mean, if a need comes up, then, Mr. Stepp would know if a need comes up that we have to meet on in that 3-week gap. He could advise us that a meeting would need to be called, and then we could go ahead and just vote for a pro tem for that meeting to get us through that 3-week period. I just hate to see
We know
us
that-
change the policy when we've got Robert's Rules of Order, but
Because we know that the problem is there. We had the problem 2 years ago. We have the same problem again. And so we should go ahead and make arrangements for if that problem should arise, we should have something in place that does not have to involve taking the director of schools away from his primary job.
he's the
Primary
one that's
job.
gonna know if we need to meet.
Yeah.
He
But
would
we
be the
already
one
do.
who knows
Call the
that.
meeting, correct?
May I talk?
Yes.
Thank you. I think the primary model that we have here is the county commission. And the county commission has a full election slate where all of their 18 county commissioners are going up for election. So they don't know who their chairperson is going to be. So what they've done is they've turned it over to the mayor to allow the mayor to conduct the meeting. So it is possible to do that. The question is whether or not this board would like to use that model or whether it likes the pro tem. And as I was discussing this with other members of other officers in the county, they're both good methods. One does not overrule the other method. Now, it's true that in Robert's Rules of Order, there's a statement that says that somebody will take over and call the meeting. But when we have a situation, we don't have a completely new board being elected every 2 years, excuse me. So consequently, our situation is different from the county commissions. They have to have their mayor, they have to have their director call the meeting. But with the pro tem officer, and I don't see any reason why we can't have a pro tem officer, elected person, they can call the meeting without having to give that position of authority to the director of school. And I prefer not giving that option to the director of schools when it's within our capability of keeping that structure within the Board of Education. So that's my opinion.
I agree with your opinion.
I agree with you, Mr. Safety.
Well, if we've got a board who feels like the Robert's Rules of Order isn't enough to address that situation, and that we're not going to entrust Mr. Stepp to let us know when a meeting needs to be called,
Yeah, that's the way I see it too.
which, yeah, I have a problem with. My recommendation would be to add something to the policy like this. Not in the first paragraph, but at line 9, where the "in the event" starts there, scratch that, but add something along the lines of, in the event there is a vacant chair or vice chair position in an election year, the board may choose to elect a pro tem chair at the August board meeting to serve until the September board
Do you
meeting.
have that written down?
I do.
Okay. I really like
I
that.
like that.
Yes.
That's fine. I mean,
And that fills that gap and
Right.
provides somebody to work with Mr. Stepp in a chair position for those 3 weeks. But
Would you-
again, I think we're making a permanent change to a policy when we've got something in place already, so.
Well, I understand, and it's 6 of one and a half dozen of another. Your preference is legitimate and good, so are the other board members, and it's just a question of who votes for what at this point. It's not voting either way is not critical for the function of the board. Okay, this is a small, but your statement of how you want the policy written is excellent, thank you.
Okay.
Would you like to read it again for the minutes so that we can,
Sure. So on line 2, we'll leave the legislative representative in there, but it should read, "and a legislative representative," scratch out "and a pro term," or pro tem. And then on line 9, where the blue writing starts, "in the event," we're going to scratch out the "there is no chairman or vice chair." We'll just say, "in the event there is a vacant chair and vice chair position in an election year, the board may choose to elect a pro tem chair at the August board meeting to serve until the September board meeting."
okay, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Hold on.
Are you still taking out line 12 and 13?
Yes, and then, yes, taking out 10, 11, 12, and 13. So replacing what is in blue there. And then, yes, the motion is to implement those changes that Shannon went ahead and read off.
Yeah. Is there a second on that?
Second?
Okay, all in favor? I guess you should be doing
Yeah.
that, Chair. I'm sorry.
Actually, I have to have Sherry. So the motion is to go ahead and use the changes that Shannon went ahead and read off.
First, I'm going to say that, Mr. Stepp, I trust you, so if we had this issue come up, that you would be able and capable of taking care of it. And if everybody wants to do this, let's just get it over with. Yes, I'll second it.
Right, and you know something? Your new board can come in and change that if they so choose.
Amen.
Pretty sure they will. Waste of our time.
All right,
Motion approved on 1.200. The next policy is 5.106. There any discussion?
Question.
Yes.
I've been given this rationale for changing policy 5106 today. Was it Ben? Did somebody talk with about this?
So HR did search this out and come up with these rationales basically to save money for the new hires coming in, especially the hourly workers. So if they approve and do the health form, I believe, which is in that justification you have, it allows them to not spend $165 to $200 just for employment, getting ready to be employed by us.
My question comes because this says because the statute says that staff must be free of communicable diseases. The policy attorney at TSBA informed us that creating an employee health declaration form would cover this for the district. I'm asking, was that Ben, was that Jennifer? Do we have that in
Jennifer
writing?
White.
We do.
We've got that in writing, that is what they are recommending. The reason that I ask is this. So the statute, let me come back where it is. And I don't, if that's good enough, that's fine. The statute says no person who has any contagious or communicable disease in a form that might endanger the health of school children shall teach in any school. And any teacher must submit to a physical examination by competent physicians when so required by the local board of education. So my question comes from the standpoint that what we're saying is that we will,
Waive it?
we're saying no person shall be employed who refuses to sign a health declaration form. So what we're basically saying is that we're going to trust anybody we hire to tell us that they don't have a contagious or communicable disease that endangers the health of school children. And if that's fine and we have no further liability from that, then great.
I agree, that's a good.
But I would want a little more notice than a few minutes to research that and confirm that with, and maybe whoever's coming on as your new board attorney might want to look at that issue. My question is, if we hire somebody on the basis that they told us an unnotarized statement that says, hey, I signed this on this date, and I'm telling you, I don't have any such disease. If somebody, some kid gets something from somebody that we hire, I mean, do they have a right of action against Cumberland County Schools? My thought is yes, but, that's just something that the board ought to consider. And again, this is just a very cursory, I wouldn't even call it an opinion, it's more a question at this point, because I just haven't had time to really look at that.
So,
Mr. Safdie?
let me give you a theoretical or a hypothetical situation. So, imagine that the person has a alcoholism and is a disease, okay? And so is drug addiction.
I don't,
I'm sorry.
in fairness, I don't think either one of those would apply, Mr. Safdie, because we're talking about contagious or communicable diseases.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, we can table it and I'll do some more research on it.
And I'm,
It's a good question.
Yes.
It is a good question.
the way the statute reads versus how our policy, how the proposed policy reads, it causes me a little bit of pause and just, if we've got other districts around us that are doing that and that have changed their policy to that effect, that's probably a pretty good sign that it's okay. And certainly, my dealings with the attorneys at TSBA has been positive, and I'm not suggesting that they are wrong, but I got enough questions that I want to look at it a little
We can
closer.
table it and I'll do some more research.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Staff.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay, so the next policy that we have up for discussion is policy 6.300, Code of Conduct and Discipline. Any discussion?
Yep, let me move my microphone back over here now that Earl's done talking. I'm trying to get him on microphone. Okay, so I had asked for this to come back to the committee at the board meeting for us to look at a little closer. In the interim, talked with Mr. Stepp, and he's got a few changes that he made to it to make sure that we are clear. I just wanted to make sure we were clear on the code of conduct and discipline regarding the bullying and cyberbullying because of the new law that was in place that mandates that officers make an official report if they're aware that a minor has been a victim of bullying or cyberbullying. They must also notify parents of the incident if the victim is a minor. And their report an official report means a written report made by law enforcement officer in the course of the law enforcement officer's official duties that the parent of a minor child who's identified as a victim in the report may obtain from the law enforcement officers employing law enforcement agency. So my concern was, since we carry that bullying and cyberbullying all the way from level 1, all the way up to level 4, but yet when we were looking at disciplinary procedures or disciplinary options, there wasn't any kind of mention regarding making a report and notifying parents. So Mr. Stepp and I talked about that, and think you came up with a solution?
Yeah, I worked with Mr. Magnuson and Mr. Howard and Mr. Fitzgerald with SROs. And they're aware of the new law. They already followed that before it became a law as far as reporting if it's confirmed, as far as reporting. And then once we report it to the SRO, then they follow their procedures. That's required by law. So we put on each level, in blue you'll see it in each level, I put just law enforcement officials are contacted. That was the language that TSBA used. So we just kind of pasted it on each level.
So if it does have to go to a report, we're covered no matter what level that happens, and there's no surprises to anyone regarding the conduct and discipline if that should happen.
And the red is all the TSBA recommendations that came from the law.
Right. So with those changes, are you then happy with that?
I think based on the new law and the discussions that Mr. Stepp had with those that are involved in it, yeah, I think
So
it
there wouldn't
should.
be any additional changes to this particular policy, just what already is
We're
in
good.
there as far as with the blue
Yes.
as well? Okay. Motion to approve?
Second it.
Motion carries. Next policy is policy 6.4052, opioid antagonist. And as the policy reads right now, it does not have any of the no liability for a student as far as if they went ahead and administered this. So as the policy stands right now, this was according to the new changes in the law. And I would recommend keeping it as is at this point. So motion to approve, unless, oh, sorry,
'Cause we can't-
discussion, sorry.
Well, we can't change this is,
No, this part, but there was the, last month, there was a Good Samaritan clause that was added, basically, and students were put in that portion of it for having no liability if they were to go ahead and use this on another student. And that part isn't in the actual law itself.
so we're not held legally, Earl, Mr. Patton,
That,
if a child does this to
no, no,
another
no,
child?
no. That part isn't in this policy now.
It
That,
says right here that you can't prohibit a student
Right.
from
or employee
carrying,
from possessing it.
right, not administering it.
And so what happens if a kid shoots another kid with one? How liable are we? That's what I'm asking. I mean, I know this may not be a part of this, but it is a part of this.
It is a part, I agree with you.
I think there's a
He's part of it.
misprint of the code section on the footnote here, and that's why I'm trying to get back to bear with me just a minute.
I'm just a little curious, who's legally responsible if a kid shoots another kid? It's one of these pins.
According to the statute, it says that they can carry it. There's no talk about liability for students.
Sue us. So the parent gets mad that the kid got shot, doesn't go after the parents, he goes after us, and the school district, I mean, my God, this is crazy. I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah, I mean,
Did you read this part? That the school nurse or trained school personnel may utilize the school supply of opioid antagonists to respond to a drug overdose. And these are professional people.
Yes.
And now the next
And then
line
the next
says,
one says-
anybody can do it.
Kindergarten could have one,
It
right?
doesn't-
Run with it on the playground.
it says that, yes, in the law, that they are the ones that are allowed to administer it, but it also does not prevent anyone else from. It
That's
says
right.
that they can carry it, so,
Wait. So hello.
yes. That was part of
We can't
my,
argue with this, obviously.
right.
Where do we put, can we add a protection to ourselves onto this?
Did you agree with that policy?
No.
Well, it's law, so
No.
I don't
Well,
have a
we
choice.
can't go ahead and say that there's no that the student has no liability.
I got a question.
Just call the parent.
Is a student allowed to bring aspirin to school?
No, my gosh, you can't even use a tanning bed.
And they can't?
You can't. They can't use a
bring
tanning
their
bed without a
spray,
parent.
their allergy
You can
spray?
carry one of these?
We have procedures for all that, so we would have to.
I know, I'm just
He's,
Yeah.
you know,
egging it on here.
yes.
I'll make
Devil's advocate, so to speak. It's like, okay, so what do we do?
I didn't know if, Earl, did you find that?
I did, I'm reviewing it right
Okay.
now again.
It's a crazy law as far as I'm concerned.
It is a crazy law.
This is crazy law. Makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Does everybody know the difference between an antagonist and an agonist?
Please tell us.
The agonist helps the opioid be more effective. The antagonist keeps it from being effective.
It's a block. Yeah, so,
Yeah. Which they're now gonna sell them over the counter, so anybody can get them. And you don't have to be trained now to use them, which I think
Right.
is the most insane thing I've ever seen in my whole life.
I can say
Continue.
this, you know, if you've got a student, I guess the fear here is that the law does not allow you to prohibit a student,
Interesting.
employee, or visitor from possessing an opioid antagonist while the person is on school property or attending a school-sponsored activity. And so the question you're presenting me is how much liability does the school system have if, unbeknownst to us, someone has on their person an opioid antagonist that we can't prohibit them from having pursuant to state law, and if they mistakenly administer that product to another individual?
There you go.
I mean, there's not. I mean, look, I don't think the school system has a lot of liability there. I mean, how could we have prevented that? In what way were we negligent in that circumstance?
Good point.
And that's the question that you've got to ask when it comes to a liability situation.
And then we go back to
So
this
I
being our
think-
backbone that they said, the law says they can have it and it's not.
Well,
their
I think
responsibility.
you got to look at the legislative intent here, and that's to prevent overdoses.
Yes.
At any cost.
I know.
Or it, you know, and so that's the purpose here. And I think the liability concern that the board might have here is understandable on one hand, but you know, there's a risk in everything that we do. And in this situation, I think, you know, the writing on the wall is pretty clear. The legislature says you can't prohibit someone from possessing that product.
so,
So if that's the case, what can you really do? You know, I would hope that the likelihood of something like that happening was not great. But, you know, let's hope something stupid doesn't happen, you know, because of this law.
Thank you.
But that's my thoughts.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
okay, given all of that, is there a motion to approve with the TSBA recommendations?
But we don't have a choice. do we?
I don't think we do.
I say,
Well, I need you to make a motion
I'll make a
first.
motion. Oh, I have to make a motion?
Yeah. Because I'm the acting chairman.
Yeah, the acting chairman. So I make the motion that we accept 6.4052.
Second.
Thank you.
Motion carries, and that is all of the policies that we have for today. Is there a motion to adjourn?
No, madam, I think we can make that motion to adjourn.
Anyone want a second?
Second.
Meeting adjourned.
All right, so you'll.
Yeah, I'll take one. About 15 or 16. Ask him.